Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome everybody to a special Sikh Network show. Today we bring you an interview with a very prestigious guest, especially in the West Midlands, but a well-known entrepreneur and successful businessman, both in the property field and in investment. And the purpose of this interview is really to share insight and his personal journey in coming here, like many of our viewers out there, son of a first generation migrants, moving to the UK, building a whole new life and focusing those values that we all hold dear, coming from Punjab or other parts of India and Africa to the UK, first generation settlers, and putting that hard work, that ethic in the forefront with education to make a successful life for ourselves and our families. And behind all of that were those strong principles of Sikhi that are grounded in us all. And today's interview is with my special guest, Paul Bassi, who has written a book, Brick by Brick, and has shared his personal journey through the number of decades of living in the UK and building businesses and moving from career to successful businesses and then running other businesses. And it's great that he shared his insight and his personal journey and experiences in a book called Brick by Brick. And I'm delighted to introduce my guest here today. Paul, welcome, and thank you for making the time and sharing your thoughts with us today.
No, good to be with you.
So, Brick by Brick, it's your first endeavour into writing your story, but I guess your story, and it's very evident in the book, starts off with how you came here, your elders, your father, your grandfather left India. But I guess those issues will resonate with many of our viewers, being first, second generation migrants as well. But let's just start with where you are today. So you've run a very successful property empire, real estate investments. But share with us about some of what sort of your businesses, what your journey has been to where you are today, and what the business does today.
Well, like most small businesses, which is what we were 35 plus years ago, we started with next to nothing. In our case, we managed to get a £1,750 overdraft from NatWest Bank. There's been nearly 35, 40 years in between, but the business today, we have a family office that's run by my son and my nephew. We have a public company that's listed on the London Stock Exchange. We have another public company listed on the International Stock Exchange in Guernsey, and one of our fun investments is actually Asher's Restaurants, which is an award-winning restaurant. Anything we do, we like to do well, whether it's the excellence within my DNA as a Sikh to always excel at whatever you do, but all of our businesses are market leaders in what we do.
And if I look back at some of your roles and posts you've had, you've been president of the Chamber of Commerce, obviously the Bond Wolf brand, one of your own, and various others. You were not honoured with the CBE not so long ago. So with the success you've had and the businesses you've ran and built, you've also been very much in the backseat rather than having in the limelight in the community world. And I guess one of my first question to you would be, writing a book, and we'll get onto some of the experiences you share within it, but writing the book and now sharing this out in the public space, how did that decision come about in terms of fairly sort of private individual, but this is now something that you've put out there in the open, and hopefully many will read and take positives from. But what sort of was the decision point that you decided that you would suddenly now share things with many more now?
Well, I am very private. I enjoy my privacy. When we have PR exercises, it's because the businesses warrant those, but actually I enjoy my privacy. But in a couple of years' time, I'll be 60 years old. And I felt it was time to record that journey, both for the business and for my family. So my children, my nephews, they really don't know that my granddad was a twin who went to get a visa with his brother from a village. They couldn't read or write. One of them got a visa to Argentina, one of them got a visa to England. The English side of the family are here. We have no idea what happened to the Argentinian side. So I've tried to pick that story up, and of course they came here, worked in foundries, bought a corner shop, and although people talk to me about success, and success, no man is a success unto himself, and I'm no different to that. But if you really want to measure success, I think what those first generation immigrants did coming to England with no money, no network, no language, no education, no home, nothing. It's on their shoulders that we've managed to build the businesses that we've got today. And then of course, I worked with people for 35, 40 years. I thought it was worth recording that journey. But also I think if you're fortunate enough to do well, which I have been, you have a responsibility to share what you've learned with others. I've given people guidance, given people a bit of advice. Some of them gone on to be extremely successful, not always monetary. It's been other success that's important to them. So those are the two key reasons for writing the book. And the third one is we have a charitable trust. We support lots of different ventures. All my profits from the book are going to charity, so it was a kind of a win-win and a win. And the timing was right, and I hadn't realised it was going to take me nearly 200 hours to write it. I didn't realise I'd be doing all these interviews, but it's a new experience, and that's what life's all about.
No, and again, I've read some through the book, and I think the first bit of it, as soon as you open it, that journey from Punjab, and many of our viewers and many like yourself and even myself have that personal journey of our parents or our grandparents leaving the homeland of Punjab, coming here in seek of improving their lives, whether financially or through education, and putting in the hours and putting 2 to 3 jobs, if not more, to build their lives and make ends meet, as well as supporting families. And your story, I would like to dwell on your grandfather, because I think many have that, is that many families, many brothers and sisters, that it was kind of luck with who went where. I know my own father, when he came, he was the youngest, that he was even registered as the son of my grandfather's brother, to sort of get him over there. My grandfather passed away early, and that's how these things were. And his younger brother sort of stayed there, and so it was kind of luck in terms of who made that journey. And with your grandfather, there was a split, I guess, between the two. And
well, I could have been in Argentina as well as I'm here. There was a lot of luck involved with people that wanted to get out of India and prosper. But I've found in life, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So they've come over here, and we're the lucky ones. We've managed to build on that. But I really don't think I could queue up outside a factory or a foundry and physically fight to get some work that week. And then share a bed with 3 other men at different hours. One would sleep and leave, the next shift would come in, not see your family for days and months, years. Now we, in our modern society, think it's terrible if we can't see our children every day. Well, my grandfather didn't see my mum for 11 years. And those are the prices they paid, and that's really what's made our community here today.
And I guess building on that, moving forward, you sort of grew up here, school in this country, and in those days, sort of the 70s, some very challenging times. And you write in the book, in the early chapters, about the challenges that you face at school, living in Southall, whilst you're now settled in the West Midlands. But early on, life is in the southeast, and in London, living through. And you talk about a chapter where you're coming back from school, you're obviously active in sports, but there was the racism, it was the bullying, being a minority community in that period of time where the national culture was challenging. But having seen that, and being your dad being an entrepreneur, local shopkeeper, where you were working in school whilst all the kids were playing outside, you'd go back and do shops in school. Did that prepare you, and what sort of lessons did you learn, both yourself dealing with that day in day in school and seeing that, but also those ethics that you sort of also had that family commitment to make sure you put in the time with the family and in the business?
Well, I was born in Birmingham, as you said, and I grew up in London. And London was a very hard, racist society. And as we all know, the Asian community were not particularly aggressive or offensive. They kind of took what their lot was and just got on with life. I became aware of racism in my teenage years. But before that, I was brought up by a very proud Sikh family, and really, we were Jat landowners, and we kind of behaved that way here.
Yeah.
But we were working in factories and foundries and corner shops. Racism, to me, in a strange sort of way, was motivational. I didn't tolerate it. I was physically very fit and strong. I could hold my own. And the best way to beat racism then and now is to prosper. Yeah. So if I had racism when we were losing at football, if I scored a goal and said we were 1-0 up, actually the racism disappeared quite quickly. And we ran successful businesses in spite of the racism. When I was at school, I wouldn't tolerate it. In fact, I quite often found myself protecting the other Indian boys at school, particularly the ones that had turbans, because they would say to me I was okay because I played football, my English vocabulary was good, and the boy with the turban they'd want to beat up, but actually the boy with the turban was my friend, was my brother. So I found myself sort of making sure they weren't bullied. But all that's made all that has made the community we've got today. We are hardened, we are strong, we are committed. The Jewish community have gone through all of this just like we have done. And to everybody out there, I think when you come across racism, don't be defeated by it. Stand up to it, prosper against it, and actually it'll disappear.
I think that's what sort of builds that character. And I think I want to come on to those vital lessons and principles that come through. Not only have you demonstrated throughout your life and career, but also that you've touched on in the book. And I know when I first read the chapter and we talked about it, it was those values of Sikhi that you talk about your grandmother, those lessons, those everyday sort of stories that your grandma tells you. Actually, they really go deep. And when you look at your own history and your connection to the Punjab, even though you may not have been born there, but you have that deep connection because of your ancestors. You talk a lot about, and this is what it really did come out in the book when I read it, whilst you're not, you'd say, a visible practicing Sikh, that those Sikh values are very strong, both in your principles as a businessman, but also in life. And were you conscious of those lessons that your grandmother was teaching you, or did they just come through naturally when you started writing it, and have now, reflecting on it, they are much more visible?
At the time I was being taught, conditioned to be the way I am today, I was not aware of what was going on. But actually Sikhism for me is just about being a good human being. I will always do the right thing. It might not always be in my best interest, I'll do the right thing. But the overriding thing for me about Sikhism is I don't fear anybody. I don't want anybody to fear me. I'll respect everybody, but I expect to be respected back in return. Now, if we can all live with that, we're going to be in a good place. If you can't respect me for how I am, then I'll move on. There are lots of people out there with whom I can engage. And I got asked a question in another interview, what's the core, what's the biggest influence on my life? And they were expecting me to give them some movie star or an iconic figure. And the truth is, actually, Sikhism has been the biggest influence on my life. I don't practice it in a traditional way. But I do believe that actually in my core inside me, I'm as God-fearing and religious as anybody else who does practice it.
I think that's one of the really strong messages that came out, that actually it's, and there's a saying in this country, don't judge a book by its cover. And actually it is those principles and values that Sikhi instills, the equality, the hard work, the sharing with others, and all of these, especially Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and we have the year of the 550th Gurpurab of Guru Nanak Dev Ji this year, later in November. But if you take those first three principles of Naam Japo, Kirt Karo, Vand Ke Chako, without sort of it all being obvious, that's what was enlightening to me as well, to see these living principles in everyday society. And it's in the top of business, at the top of the pyramid. We're seeing through yourself and through your actions, those principles being very clear. And I guess, having written the book now, it's given you time to reflect. But when you look back over your career and those humble beginnings and difficult beginnings, and now to where you are today, what are some of the key lessons you say that you've now either were clear on, or having written the book have now sort of come to the forefront in your mind of?
You know, when I look back, I don't see my beginnings as humble. You know, I may well have been working class immigrant, but actually in my mind I was from a proud, rich family, so I never felt humble.
Right.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I'm very confident because I'm very honest. I'd make an awful politician. I'm very direct, I'll tell the truth. So I don't view having a humble beginning, but humility and being humble when you've succeeded. And again, I have much more to do in my life, so I don't view my life as a success, but I know that people will measure it accordingly, and I'm very fortunate. So humility is at the core of it, whether we were there or now. The business today, I accept, is a substantial business. We are into hundreds of millions of pounds worth of assets and employing hundreds of people. And I take great pride in that, but I'm only a custodian. You know, I will look after this business for a few years. More management will come in. My son, my nephew will pick it up. Hopefully they'll pass it on to their children. And that's fine, you know, that feels good. That's the real reward here. I only sleep under one roof. I only eat 1 or 2 meals a day. I only drive one car at a time, you know. I'm just a very normal guy who's been very lucky because I knew how to make money.
Yeah, and I guess even just hearing you there, those typical but strong and positive Punjabi values, something in terms of the family working in the business, being an integral part of the business, and at the right time being handed over to them, and they will then lead and hopefully take the businesses even greater achievements. But
just on that, when our families bring children into the business, the one common flaw they have is they don't let the child go out and get educated and work somewhere else for 3, 5, 10 years. In our case, every one of our children will have gone out and got educated, gone out and worked somewhere for 5 or 6 years, so they can bring something to the business and improve our business. And I would encourage all our family businesses to let their children go out, get educated, get their network, and come back if they want to improve the business, because otherwise all they're going to know is what you know.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, a really good positive message to others, that actually when you go out in the world, whether it's whatever education you get, whatever job, it's a different experience, different challenges, and those skills, when you bring back, you will only uplift the family business, whether it's a corner shop or whether it's a multi-million pound business. So I guess, given that our community particularly have a keen interest in business, we've been entrepreneurs since we arrived here, similarly like your father and grandfather before them, but also in property as well. Property, land and building, you talked about Punjab, field landowners in the UK, bricks and mortar are an important asset, and people see that as their future investments as well. So there is a lot of our community that have an interest in property at various levels across the spectrum, and businesses. What are some of the key lessons that you would share with them? Obviously there's loads in the book, and we'll come on to the book launch and where people can get it, but what are some of the things that really you've seen that could value?
A lot of our community are into property, and even large businesses have a property element to them. The 3 principles that relate to a business, whether it be property or otherwise, first of all, I think you have to have a big picture. You know, where do you want to get this business to? What's the scale? What's the shape? What's the size? What does it feel and look like in 10 and 20 years' time? So you have to agree that before you go anywhere. It's a bit like going on a journey. You need to put into your sat-nav the end destination before you go. Second thing is, you have to surround yourself with quality people. I'm very, very lucky. I've got some great staff who've been with me 30, 35 years. Our community does make a key mistake in this area. We need an accountant. We find the first guy we know who can add up or owns a calculator or is an accountant. You've got to go out and get the best in class. Go and get the best lawyers. And I know you might have had a family accountant. But even that accountant has a responsibility to understand that when your business is growing, it's time to allow you to move on to the bigger accountancy practice. They can move with you, but surround yourself with good people in the business and outside the business. And the third thing is, you've got to share that cake.
Yeah.
Yes, you can pay them well, you've got to bonus them well, you've got to incentivize them well, but you've got to give them the stage, the creativity, the platform, the recognition. Bring those three elements together, and I cannot believe you won't be successful. I mean, you will be successful with that hard work ethic we've got and the commitment. You put all that together, it's why our Sikh community today are so prosperous and doing so well.
That affluent, and we've benefited, certainly my generation and the generation after me have certainly benefited from the hard work that our parents have done before us. But I guess you may have also seen, I guess, being a major recruit in the area as well, that some of those values and that hard work ethic with the younger generation, in that whilst they have become educated and got very good grades, that there is the danger of that feeling privileged that they are owed a certain career straight away. What would be your advice to some of the younger generation, younger viewers that aspire to be successful in business, in mainstream businesses, maybe not so much of the family business, but what would your message be to them around what you've gone through and some of your challenges that actually you can't get away from hard work and you can't get away from putting in the hours and the effort in? What would you share with those?
Well, these youngsters, if we call it that, most of them are on a pretty good path. I mean, we give the youngsters a hard time, but most of our community youngsters, they excel at school, they excel at university, they excel in their careers. So most of them, are doing very well. The real fact of the matter is hard work cannot be replaced. Please don't waste your youth. If you work hard, follow all the disciplines a good business needs to have, they can have wonderful lives and make the reason why people left our country all those decades ago to go through all that hardship to come all the way over here. Please don't ruin that, because without that sacrifice you wouldn't be where you are today. And the potential for our community is huge. You can be a PLC like we are, you can have a private office like we are, you can run companies across the globe if you want to, but just don't waste the opportunity you've got.
No, and I guess that's something. It's really sort of those kind of messages, experience carry weight when someone who's lived through it and done it and achieved the things certainly you have, and hearing that firsthand certainly is motivational and inspirational. I guess having reflected, and I guess writing a book is the greatest way to reflect back on your life. Is there anything that once you've now read it and written it that you think you would have done acted differently at certain junctures or certain critical points, or is that journey, it is what it is, that's made you here today? What some of the lessons you would have learned, I guess?
There's lots of mistakes I've made, but as long as you learn from those mistakes, it's not a problem. If you keep making those mistakes, well, you need to reassess. There are lots of things I'd like to change, but then maybe I wouldn't be me. I could have gone to London instead of staying in Birmingham. I buy a building in Birmingham for £1, I sell it for £2, and we've done well. Well, the same building I'd have bought in London and sold it for £10. But my life is here, my family are here, and strangely enough, Birmingham actually is the place to be now. If I were a young man, and this is demonstrated by the statistics, there's more people leaving London and moving to Birmingham than anywhere else in the UK. The economy here in the Midlands is vibrant, and if I could be anywhere in the UK today, I'd be here.
And you can see that just driving into the offices today, the level of cranes and the investment and the infrastructure that's coming up with the Commonwealth Games and the HS2, the rail links. Birmingham is the hub of activity now, and I guess comes on to my final question is what's next now for people? Obviously business is great, you've sort of achieved the things you wanted to achieve, set out to do and beyond. Books now written. You talked, mentioned you're not political, but I know you've supported political campaigns, and you've also supported Sikh groups, and certainly with the Sikh network, and I know Preet Kaur Gill locally, the MP for Edgbaston. But what's next for you? I mean, what's you talk a lot about sharing, and it's one of the strong values that come out. I guess where do you go next? What's on your horizon now?
As you get older, there's even more things you want to do, and you've got less time to do them in. There are very, 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 very big opportunities out there on the commercial and the business front. They're not my driver. They'll be the driver for that next tier of management, whether it be my son or whether it be management that run the business, my nephew in his auction business. So the business isn't my driver. You know, I'm aging like we all do. You know, my daughter's married.
Aging a lot better than most.
Yeah, there'll be grandchildren. But you know, there's lots to do. There's lots of boxes to tick. My bucket list is bigger than ever. And I suppose a responsibility that I didn't realise I would have is that whilst I have no desire to be a politician, I think the onus upon me to support those in my community that have decided to be, as long as they're a good politician, as long as they're standing up for the right thing, is to support them. You know, and I'm there for that. Community problems, if I can help out with those, we'll do. But I have to say, I enjoy making money. You know, it's fun. I found it easy to make money. Not so easy looking after it, because everybody's after it.
Exactly. Well, I guess on that's a huge tip for people who are also interested in making money, but also in the right way. As Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, "Kirt karo, work hard, work honestly, but share it and keep those Sikhi values at the centre of what we do." That, having read the book, I can certainly say that comes through, and Paul is a great example of highlighting success within the community. So I'd encourage everybody who is interested in professional careers, how to run companies at the CEO level. If you're interested in property, then buy the book, Brick by Brick by Paul Bassi. All donations of the book, all revenue generated will go to charitable trust. So again, emphasizing that the charitable nature of what Paul is now doing. But there will be huge nuggets of success in here, tips, lessons to be learned. So again, I'll encourage everybody to read this. And final message from you, Paul, to the
just I want the book to do well.
Yeah.
It's a good book, I'm aware of that. What I would say to everybody, whether they be a young man about to go into business or woman, somebody going into professional career, there'll be something in that book that I promise you will have an influence on you for the rest of your life. And if it doesn't, I'll gladly give you...
Tell everybody finally where they can get the book from, and when's it released?
Well, it's on release. You can buy it at Waterstones, Amazon, etc. But as I said, if it doesn't have an impact on you, I'll give you your money back.
There you go. What better guarantee can you get that? If it doesn't give you any positive lesson or change your life, you get your money back. I want to thank everybody for watching this special show of the Sikh Network Show, special interview on Brick by Paul Bassi. Get the book online. It's on all the usual retail stores and bookstores. And please share your feedback with us. Let us know what you think on social media. Paul's on social media. Contact the Sikh Network. And hopefully we'll bring you more about what successful Sikh entrepreneurs are doing in the world, and how we all as a community can grow and become more influential. Thank you for watching. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.